Hey there, everybody, it's Cujo Kate, and we've been doing reviews and analysis of this Halloween movie trilogy, starting with Halloween 2018, the original Halloween. Then we had Halloween Kills. Now we are going to have Halloween Ends. Halloween Ends was in the theaters on October 14th, 2022, and we are going to be doing a review and analysis of the movie, things going on in there, and different ideas of what we think is going on in the film. This film is a bit different from the traditional Halloween movies. It has a little bit more of a drama background to it, and we're going to be diving into all of that and exploring as we go along. So, one thing for sure, as a generality, what we're going to be noticing as you start to watch this film, there's going to be a lot of attention to bright colors, and it's a very interesting film when it comes to that and camera angles and ratios, in addition to a lot of appreciation to previous Halloween movies, whether it is through Blumhouse or previous Halloween canon movies. So let's start off here. Halloween Ends 2022. And the first thing that's going to happen in the intro screen is you're going to be hearing the radio. I believe that's a head nod to Rob Zombie. There is going to be light blue font in the very beginning and a certain type, and that is going to be a head nod to Halloween 3, the Season of the Witch. In 2019, at this point, we're going to be introduced to Cory, who's roughly 21 years old. He's a young man on a bicycle, wearing glasses, very happy. He is getting into college. He's going to be an engineer, mechanical engineer. He's very smart. And then he's going to be going to a house to babysit a little boy while his parents go to a Halloween party. There is an emphasis on the staircase in this house, which is a really nice grand staircase that spirals upwards. There's going to be a big call to levels in this movie and gradients and journey, the idea of journeys and transitions. So, the father is going to be in the living room playing on the piano. The little boy, his name is Jeremy, he is wearing a werewolf mask and he scares his mother. Now, first of all, I want to say that mask was a beautiful mask. It was a fantastic werewolf mask, and I thought, wow, where did he buy that? I was like, that's a really nice mask. But he scares his mom with the mask. Ironically, I think, head nod to Michael in the Halloween book, which was written after John and Deborah's Halloween of 1978. When the first Halloween movie came out, they ended up writing this book with an author after the movie. So it went into a little bit of Michael's childhood. They said that he was, as he was starting to get a little bit older, so maybe around 5 to 7 years old, he was starting to get a little bit moody, aggressive, withdrawn. He had some bedwetting issues, nightmares. He was a bit obsessive and protective and wanted to be around family members. He was afraid of the dark. and once into wearing masks off and on. So, also, an interesting thing about the werewolf mask, werewolves transformation, something interesting to think about with that. So, as Michael continued this way, and his mother would talk to his grandmother and say, I'm a little concerned. Michael was getting worse, and it started to get into sleepwalking and hearing voices and having these nightmares. So, heading back to Jeremy, the little boy in the mask, he ends up throwing paper airplanes at Cory, which shows that he has a lack of respect for authority, a lack of discipline, and he's a bit rude, right? They're watching some movies and things like that together. The parents are out and about, and he's giving Cory a hard time yet again. The movie that they are watching is John Carpenter's The Thing. Cory wants to get a snack. So he goes to the kitchen and he gets chocolate milk and zucchini bread. And he's cutting it with a knife, and he ends up, the door ends up opening. He ends up going around and notices the knife is gone. He looks for the boy, and he sees on the step the knife is there. Okay, on the steps of this big staircase spiraling upwards. So he gets the knife, because remember, he heard something, and he doesn't know what's going on with Jeremy, the little boy. So he grabs the knife and starts heading up the stairs. At the very top of the steps, there is a room up there. He goes into the room, and the little boy ends up locking the door and locking Cory in this room. Now, at this point, the parents pull up. So, parents pulling up to the house is always a very interesting time in Halloween movies, because after Michael killed his sister, the parents pulled up and they had this panoramic, wide shot view of him standing there as a 5-year-old with a knife, and mom and dad are on either side, and they're kind of like, what did you do? It's supposed to be a live still shot, that broadens out to bring, emphasis on intensity at that moment. So parents pull up. There's intensity at the moment once again. Cory's locked in this room. He's freaking out because he's claustrophobic. And what we're seeing here is out as mom and dad are unlocking the door. Cory does not stop freaking out, and he starts hitting the door to try to shove it open. And the little boy is on the other side of the door. He shoves the door really hard. The little boy ends up going flying over the railing, and he lands all the way down at the entrance of the doorway where the stairs start. And the parents come in and they see their son crash down on the ground, break his neck, and they start freaking out. They look up, and you see Cory standing there with the knife in shock. And they as in the parents, obviously, mistook the situation and felt that Cory was chasing the little boy around with a knife. The boy either jumped over the railing or he shoved him over the railing, and because of the babysitter murders that Michael did years prior on Halloween night, they thought that he was trying to be a copycat killer. So they were very, very, very upset. You could see where they were trying to go with how the little boy was transcending from the top of the steps and he fell all the way down to the bottom. So that was basically his journey. Now Cory is at the top of the steps. Okay, so you can sort of see how they're trying to use all of this as a theme as the movie's going forward. So then you have the intro and the Transforming Pumpkins. Now, the Transforming Pumpkins is a head nod to Halloween 2, 1981. And the last pumpkin is not carved. So that is representative of the new movie. And there are 13 Halloween movies in total. And there are 6 pumpkins. So we're thinking the movies generally are Halloween 1, 1978, Halloween 2, 1981, Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers, Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers, Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael, Halloween 7 is H2O, the 20-year later. Halloween 8 is Halloween Resurrection. And then we have Rob Zombie's Halloween 1, Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. Then we have Halloween 2018, Halloween Kills in 2021, and then Halloween Ends in 2022. Blumhouse and Gordon Green did Halloween 1 through Halloween 3, so that's Halloween, Halloween Ends, and Halloween Kills, which leaves the one pumpkin uncarved as in what is to come of this movie, right? It's also generally saying once the pumpkin is carved, then the movie's complete and the story is done. So at this point, we're going to see Laurie, and it's going to be her intro, and she's basically doing a recap on what had happened. And she says, you know, my daughter was killed. Michael was looking out of the bedroom window at his house, in the Myers house, as if he felt that his job was completed, and he disappears for 4 years. So what he wanted to do was he ended up killing Laurie's daughter. I think just to try to hurt her. And he was in his house. He's looking out his window. And there is the radio tower transitioning, journey and, an emphasis on transitions again, because it goes from small all the way up to narrow up at the top. You could try to climb it. He feels that he got what he needed to do done. He disappears for 4 years. People in the town of Haddonfield were acting out and reacting to the killings. There was suicide, there was blame, misplaced anger and fear amongst everyone, and misplaced blame, anger, and fear to Laurie, and she didn't cause any of this, but they felt that somehow she had goaded Michael on to go on to this additional killing spree. Everyone is trying to move forward with peace, and Laurie is in a better place, but she is documenting all of this in a book, and she is raising Allison, who is her granddaughter, and Allison's parents were killed by Michael in Halloween 1 and Halloween Kills, and she is a nurse at this point. So then we're going to head back over to Cory, and Cory is just kind of all over the place and a little disheveled. So his mannerisms are a little all over the place. His clothing, he's a little off. And the town is overall aggressive and scared, even though it's 4 years later in some, because of what Michael had done. It's getting near Halloween time. Nobody can track him down. And because Cory was considered also a babysitter that had killed that little boy on Halloween night, and they're kind of trying to parallel those two together. So Cory heads out to the auto yard. He heads out to the auto yard on a bicycle. And going to the auto yard is strong ties to Stephen King's Christine movie. Ironically, as soon as I saw this in the movie, I knew what was going on with that. I thought, wow, this is very reminiscent of Christine. John Carpenter had made the Christine movie, and ironically, that movie was obviously based off of the book Christine, which is a very heavy southwestern PA and Pittsburgh movie, because it was all through here. So he goes to the auto yard, and the book for Christine by Stephen King is based around Arnie, who's a young boy. He's in high school and he's picked on and bullied and everything. He ends up finding a solace in purchasing this vintage car. The car is possessed, but whoever is the owner, they bond with the owner, and then they basically, take over the person's life, and then the car goes out on killing sprees, and it can heal itself. It's actually a really good book, and the movie's pretty fantastic. So at this point, Cory, who has a natural ability for mechanics, and he was trying to complete his education for mechanical engineering, had been so unbelievably stressed that he left his studies and is now salvaging parts at this auto mechanic yard. The owner of the yard is being very nice to him and taking him in and embracing him, because he knows Cory's gone through a tough time. And he gives him a salvaged motorcycle. Cory's very grateful. And while all this is happening, the radio is on. So transitioning. Things going on at this point. We're going to switch over to Allison. Allison's car breaks down on the billboard. It's all radio. And she is dating a police officer that ends up pulling over, and there is a homeless person that is under the bridge where they are. And there is an emphasis on the sewer hole, which Michael's in the sewer hole. Okay. At the Unimart, Cory is there and he buys chocolate milk. Chocolate milk ties back to the little boy's house that went over the railing. This time at the house, he wasn't able to drink the chocolate milk. He poured it. He went to cut the zucchini bread. The knife disappeared, remember? He heard a noise, and it was actually the little boy trying to scare him. This time he buys the chocolate milk. He actually drinks the chocolate milk, so he got a step ahead. A group of band kids come in and start harassing him. And they're outside. He breaks the glass bottle, the glass milk bottle in his hand. He cuts his hand pretty severely. They're standing in front of an ice chest, and on the ice chest are triangles. Triangles throwback to the Cult of Thorn, when they were saying Michael was possessed, and that's the reason why he acts the way he does, and they were having him going and doing all these murders and things like that. Laurie is getting gasoline. She sees all of this, and she goes and saves Cory, which is ironic because he would be considered an accidental child killer, considering that when it was 78, she was in high school and everything, Michael was technically the child killer at that point, going after the babysitters. She suggests revenge on the band kids and, how his hand ended up getting cut up by the glass bottle and everything. So they end up slashing the band kids' tires to his car. Heading over to Allison at the doctor's office. Laurie brings Cory over to Allison. So she introduces them. Allison stitches Cory's hand. And she's being helpful, and she's trying to be protective of Cory. And he's acting like he's all right and he doesn't want, any help. But basically, she tells him, hey, your hand's going to get infected if you don't take care of it. At the end of the day, his hand was already infected. He has chocolate milk all through his hand. He probably would have needed severely cleaned out with alcohol and had some antibiotics and everything else. He wouldn't need like a tetanus shot. That wouldn't even be a situation. But he had a deep cut with glass with chocolate milk. That's kind of icky there. So she basically is saying you don't want your hand to get infected. She's saying that metaphorically and prophetically, right? So she's seeing into the future where she doesn't want his spirit to get infected to be bad. And she's saying metaphorically she doesn't want his hand to get infected, in general, because that would be, a big pain and very physically bad. But also, for his well-being, spiritually, mentally, and everything. And like we said, looking into the future. She's really flirting with him and everything. They head outside and, you look up and you see the radio tower there. So transitions. Could that transition be making that contact point between two people and starting to move forward as a couple from that moment on. He ends up giving Allison the bicycle, and he is now on the motorcycle. So now we're going to head over to Laurie, and she is in her kitchen and she's carving the pumpkin. Head nod to 1978, where Laurie is carving the pumpkin on Halloween night with Lindsay, who is the little girl with the long dark brown hair and the bangs, who is being babysat. Lindsay is reading some tarot cards, and basically, at this point, we're going to try to summarize some of the things that are going on. Basically sees Death card and saying there's going to be a lot of transitioning. Things are going to be happening. Heading over to Cory's house, and she says that to Allison. Heading over to Cory's house, Cory, his mother is very overbearing. She's on all over him all the time, and she's a bit obsessive compulsive. The mechanic shop owner is her boyfriend, and he is trying to hide that he gave the motorcycle to Cory. Cory is trying to hide that he has the motorcycle from his mom. And, obviously Allison knows that he has the motorcycle there. We'll have to get back to that at the end. He is learning to ride the motorcycle at the mechanic shop, and as he's learning how to ride this motorcycle, which is another transition because he was on the bicycle, he is driving past the metal compression crushing unit machine, which is also a transition, because you're going from a vehicle to crushing it down into something that is going to be either thrown away or recycled or melted. The band kids, the main one, comes in with his father to try to fix the sliced tire. And the father's obviously very upset. Fast forward to the supermarket. Frank, who was the police officer in 1978, sees Laurie in the supermarket. They flirt back and forth with each other. Outside, Laurie is confronted by the sister of one of Michael's victims from Halloween Kills, the previous movie. And basically, the sister is saying, well, you ended up, annoying Michael. It made him want to escape, and, you angered him, and then he took his frustrations out and killed the whole town. This is all your fault. And Laurie ended up feeling, very badly about that. Now it's Halloween time, and we're in a bar at a party. Allison and Cory are together. Allison is, having a great time hanging out. Cory's a little bit more shy. The nurse that is a friend of Allison's that she works with is dressed up as a devil. Cory is dressed up as a scarecrow. And the interesting thing is the friend is a devil because she's a little bit of, of a conniver. Cory is dressed up as a scarecrow, someone that is imitating, or something that is imitating a man. Looks like a man, but isn't. Allison is dressed up as a cat, possibly because Michael's tried to kill her in previous movies. She keeps getting away. Who knows, though, if he's actually trying to get her, but, 9 lives. So she's dressed up as a cat. Nick Castle, who is the original Michael from 78, is in the bar and has a cameo scene. Cory ends up having his scarecrow mask on and does the Michael head tilt. The nurse and Allison I can't read my handwriting here. I'm seeing also that it says here that the sword tarot card is held from Lindsay, who is the bartender in the bar that they're at. So she has her tarot cards out there. So Allison ends up grabbing Cory. They're both dancing, and there's a transition that happens while they are dancing. So they're both dancing around. Then he ends up basically getting on the floor and sort of like shaking and everything. And it made me wonder if, obviously it wasn't the dancing that made the transition for this. I think that the common thread through all of this might be love. So does love or feeling a connection make whatever it is that makes these people killers, is that what activates it? So when Michael saw Laurie in the 78 movie drop off the keys at his house, and she didn't see him, and he saw her, and he grew infatuated, or he was in love with her. In this, you're seeing Cory looking up on the ground, and Allison is looking down. And, there's a moment there. That's an important camera shot. And then something happens between the two of them, and it might have been the same thing that happened with Michael to Laurie, but I feel that, through everything that Laurie had been through the whole series, she obviously formed some sort of a bond, and then we'll see it later on, or anybody in a situation like that would form some sort of something, even if it's when you're captive type of situation. It had developed with her after Michael's did. Could that bond had also been tied to when Michael was so close with his sister Judith, and when he saw her with her boyfriend, and he went and he killed her? So I think that could have been, a brotherly, sisterly love kind of thing. It could have some ties to some sort of obsessive compulsion. Could be some sort of infatuation. Cory then, because remember, he's still on the floor while everybody's dancing around, he sits up like Michael does, like straight up, which is a head nod to Michael. And the mother is in the bar, and she ends up harassing Cory. You're here, you killed my son. I don't forgive you for that. Cory and Allison have a moment with each other where Allison's saying, I feel like I'm in a really tough spot because my grandmother had all these terrible situations with Michael Myers. I am also involved in that, and the town is all upset. Cory's in the same boat, but a little bit different because of the accidental death. They understand each other at that point and link at that instant, and they say, okay, this is where our path needs to branch off and separate. So they want to possibly think about dating, but in addition to that, figuring out different options of how to survive in the town and if they want to stay or if they want to go. They're trying to do it together. Now, Michael and Laurie did not have this mutual, loving feeling to each other. Michael liked Laurie. It obviously never worked out because she just was scared and freaked out from him from the whole time because he was stalking her. And it makes you wonder what would have happened if something like that was different and could have worked out. Would this have been the storyline? So now we're going to see Cory is going to say, hey, you know what? I'm heading home. He's walks over the bridge, and the band kids are there. Band kids harassing him. He pulls out the knife. They don't care. They beat him up, toss him over the bridge. The knife is on the ground. Michael sees Cory and he pulls him into the sewer. The homeless man sees all of this because he's on the ground at the bottom of the bridge also. Michael basically lifts Cory up in the air with one hand, but he struggles to do it. And he's been in hiding now for 4 years. And he somehow sees into the history that Cory has by looking at his face and in his eyes. And he sees a common thread of killing somebody. Even though it was an accidental murder, there's something else in there that I think that he saw that could snap, and he actually lets Cory go. Cory is intrigued, but he's still freaked out. He stumbles out of the sewer, and he's attacked by the homeless person who's basically saying, how the heck did you get out of there when everybody else is getting killed? Cory ends up, having the knife from the ground and defensively stabs the homeless man. He then throws the knife. In the 1978 Halloween, Jamie stabs Michael defensively, and she throws down the knife. So there's a parallel there at that point. Cory goes home. Mom's overbearing. Where you've been, da. Cory runs into the bathroom. There's, blood on him and everything. He has a moment in the bathroom that I would correlate to the Stephen King book, Carrie. And the movie Carrie, everybody sort of knows some of these scenes. She runs to the bathroom after setting the high school prom on fire and basically killing a ton of her roommates or classmates. She has the pig's blood that's poured all over her in her prom dress, and she's in the mirror and she's just upset, and she's trying to get this blood off of her. It's the same thing with Cory, also, trying to get blood off of you and off of your hands. And I think at this point there might have been a mental lapse or a mental break. Later on, Laurie is in her house and Allison lives with her. And she sees Cory in the window standing by a bush like how Michael did in 78. She gets upset and realizes that this is not a good thing. And she is not happy that Cory is hanging around Allison. Cory tells Allison that he killed this homeless man. And I don't know if she thought that he meant he killed this guy theoretically, because I don't know anybody that would say, hey, I killed somebody, and you just go, oh, okay, yeah. No. She ends up trying to rationalize what's going on with him. And they are in the boy's house that had passed away. The house is vacant. The piano is still there that the father was playing on. And they start to play the first couple of notes to the Halloween song that John Carpenter had made. And when the boy had died, Jeremy, the house was abandoned, just like the Myers house was abandoned when Judith was killed. So, a lot of emphasis on the stairs once again, and the artistic detail on it, and there's a wave that goes on it. I thought that was really pretty. So, transitionings in the movie and for the characters. Laurie visits Cory's mother, and Cory's mom basically says, look, I have to protect my son from all these people always berating and attacking my son. Michael's to blame. You, Laurie, is to blame. And Laurie is, already depressed and upset. She's concerned for her granddaughter, Allison, and she leaves. Allison is basically reminiscing and everything, and she is staying in Haddonfield because of the memories. Her parents have passed away. She moved in with her grandmother. She cares for Cory at this point. And Laurie is basically now the more mother figure to Allison. Laurie is caring for Allison, and they both have a bit of a obviously family relationship, but a bit of a codependency on each other too. Laurie is sober, whereas in previous movies, she had a bit of a drinking problem to deal with some of the stress of Michael and the town. Cory has now been trying to separate the two, and he is a bit of a force of negative energy. And he initially wasn't so much, but now it's been growing. He is also forming a dependency on Allison. And he's suggesting, why don't you leave? Why don't you leave Haddonfield? Why don't you leave your grandmother? Let's head out here. And it's very interesting. He is really trying to push Allison's hand in, let's head out, let's head out, let's head out. Technically, he's involved in 2 murders. One, he's firsthand involved in the murder, and it is a defensive murder. The second murder with the little boy, he was a witness to a murder, but he was an accomplice in the murder because he shoved the door open and the little boy fell over the railing, but that was an accident. But technically still 2. So he is in the cafe with Allison, and he's holding her hand, and he's acting very codependent to her, and he's saying, look, let's burn it down, let's burn the town down, get revenge, to all the people that have treated us badly, and let's just then get the heck out of here. And he's basically isolating Allison from the only family that she has left, which is her grandmother Laurie, making Allison dependent on him, and trying to take her away, right? For complete control. He is trying to break Allison's positive bonds, even though in the town there's negative bonds with how they have been treating she and her grandmother. At this point in the cafe, the policeman who is Allison's, someone else Allison had been dating, tries flirting with her and offers for Allison and Cory to hang out together. And he starts pressuring Allison, hey, are you sure? Well, why don't you join us? Blah, blah, blah. She said no, get the heck out of here. The 2 men almost fight. And Allison says, okay, you know what? Let's just burn it all down. So, I'm sure once again she means theoretically, and she doesn't think that Cory actually killed this guy when he said, I killed somebody. So, I don't know what she's thinking, but they're on a motorcycle together. And there's red flags all over the place. But she, I think, is just so stressed out with how the town's been treating her. Her grandmother is very, protective, and she wants to make sure that they're safe. And we have the transition from bicycle to motorcycle, but Allison is on the motorcycle. They are both on this motorcycle, and they're basically, the transition might be a transition to freedom because they're both really moving on this motorcycle. We're seeing parallels once again that this could be in a parallel, in a different universe, if this could be Michael and Laurie, if they could have worked something out and branched off that type of a storyline. So Allison is dropped off. She goes into Laurie's house. Cory goes under an underpass area, and he is driving around on the motorcycle and everything, and the police officer is basically tracking him down. And this is a very significant scene from the movie Christine, which ties to John Carpenter and Stephen King. And the police officer, in knowing that Cory is canoodling under this bridge underpass area, he finds the dead homeless man, and he and Cory get into a tussle together. The police officer ends up following Cory into the tunnel, and in the tunnel, it seemed to me in the tunnel that you could see a face carved into the background. I mean, it could have been Michael just standing there, but it seemed like a face was actually carved in the wall. I don't know if the significance for that was the Cult of Thorn significance again. But then at this point, Michael attacks, and he is kicked to the ground. So then Cory starts getting involved against a police officer, and he is basically asking Michael, hey, how do I kill this guy? So Michael goes and he gets his knife, and it's, kind of beat up and rusty. And he starts stabbing the police officer. Now, it seemed that as he was doing this, he was regenerating and gaining strength from doing that. And Cory is in shock, and he's, going, oh my God, he's just completely taken aback, but he's still there and present and witnessing it, and he forced himself to stay through it, and he didn't leave, and he accepted it. So he runs back to Allison, and he basically says he wanted to know, did Michael let you live, or he was going to try to kill you and you escaped? Because what he is understanding at this point is Michael could have killed him, saw something in him, let him go. He's freaked out by Michael's actions, but there's a part of him that's somewhat intrigued, and he is at this awareness now of he could easily flip to either side. Laurie sees Cory and Allison talking, and then they go up the steps in her house. Remember, transitions again. And while she is seeing them heading upstairs to fool around, basically, Michael is watching Laurie. It's a two-way peeping situation. I thought it was interesting. And then they had the Halloween noise, which just really put it over the top. I was like, oh, this is perfect. It was a very cool shot that they did with that. So in the morning, um, Allison and Cory are in the bed in her bedroom, and he sees his scarecrow mask in her room. And that's a little bit significant there. I mean, he sees the mask. The mask was at the bar where all the transitions, him dancing on the ground and everything. But also, he has now reached a point with Allison where they're pretty much in a complete relationship. And you know he can't, I mean, other than marrying her or creating a family with her, he can't meet any more transitional goals unless it's those goals, right? So he is committed at this point. And what he's thinking is being very, like we had said earlier, obsessive, protective, and trying to isolate and control. So he's thinking about all of this when he sees that mask in her room, and then you'll see how it makes sense a little later on. So Laurie is back in the bar where Lindsay works, and she's talking to Lindsay. The little boy that died, his father that was playing the piano, is in the bar. And basically he says that he had wanted to forgive Cory for what had happened with his son, but when he saw Cory at one point, he felt that because Cory was in a bad place, that he just didn't even want to give him the chance, and he didn't say anything. And he felt that Cory looked like a guy that could be going down the wrong path. So everybody's sort of going, okay, we have a guy, the father feels that, he might be starting to go down the wrong path. This is even before Cory was getting influenced by Michael. And, if someone had just started to be nice to him, like Cory's mother had said, or even been nice to Laurie, a lot of these things could have been averted a little bit. We're going to fast forward now over to Allison's boss, who's the doctor, and the nurse who was dressed up as the devil in the Halloween party. They are at the doctor's house, the devil nurse and the doctor. And she is getting a promotion and a raise in exchange for sex. And because of this, and she's a little snarky, she ended up hurting Allison. She took Allison's promotion without actually earning it. So, because somebody hurt Allison, Cory feels it's his job to step in, do something about it. So, Cory is wearing the scarecrow mask. And this is where the tie is from. He's in the bedroom, he's feeling this bond to Allison. The OCD kicks in. What he's been seeing Michael doing is kicked in. And he's taking on these mannerisms of, I am going to protect the person that I love with force, and I'm going to wipe these people out. So he has that mask on. And he ends up killing the doctor with a corkscrew. And he is kind of erratic with how he killed him. And he tosses the doctor off of him, basically. Like in a very erratic and frantic way. And he flies after the devil nurse. And that part right there, this whole part, very much reminded me of Scream. Ghostface, even though multiple people playing Ghostface is very fast. He was, at some points very erratic, and just frantic moving and everything, and just in actions, where as Michael was very stoic, very strong, slow moving, and efficient, mostly, right? Everything that he does brings intensity and fear and a build-up, right? But Cory's just still a little all over the place. And this could be just because he's just completely different than Michael is. So, the nurse is running out. She closes the door, closes Cory's hand in the door, which of course is the hand that's sewn, right, from the chocolate milk bottle. She calls 911. Nobody knows. Michael's in the house. Classic Michael grabs her, lifts her up on the wall with one hand. 1978 kill. And Cory ends up unwrapping his hand, looks at the hand, it's bleeding all over the place. And it is officially cut open, reinfected, a big mess. So that is the big transition right there. No turning back. You officially did it, and you're going down the wrong path. As the nurse is lifted up at the wall, by her head there is a symbol, and it could be an infinity symbol, where it is in the book that was written after the 1978 movie. There were these druids, and basically this one, he was, deformed, and he fell in love with the princess. And the prince, he would have done anything for this princess. And she would talk to him and everything and be nice. But she loved this other guy. And he was to be the prince. The king was all about it. And at one point, then there was this big festivity. The man that was in love with the princess, he figured, well, if I can't have her, nobody can have her. He goes, he kills the princess, he runs to his house. Everybody goes, oh my gosh, he went and he killed the princess. I'm trying to remember back. I think he may have killed the prince too. And the king said, you know what? We're going to take this guy, we're going to kill him and put a curse on him so that this is never going to happen ever again. And his soul is just going to eternally burn. So when this man had run to his house to take cover, I believe they set the house on fire and it burnt down, and then I think they dismembered him. They buried him in the pieces in the side of this hill, and they had this special druid prayer so that he would have been cursed. And they said that his spirit was, or the spirit curse was constantly going from one person to another person. And that's how Michael got it as a little boy and was having the nightmares and the bedwetting and things like that because it had landed on him. Michael could have felt or known that his time was starting to run out as he would hide in this tunnel and was trying to take cover for 4 years as he was slowly starting to go downhill. Had Cory come along, saw the common thread between him and Cory, and was trying to pass this over to him. So, he has the nurse up on the wall. And he looks over at Cory like, hey, are you taking these notes? And he takes and he pins her to the wall. And Cory's going, oh my God, here I am doing all these little stabs. But so that's how Michael ends up doing it. Cory's very impressed. We're going to fast forward again. Allison and Cory are back on the motorcycle. She has no clue. The radio is playing and they are heading over to the radio station. Cory wants to climb the tower up. Transitions again. He wanted to basically transcend back to his old life where he was studying for his mechanical engineering. He felt that he was a lot happier. He wishes that a lot of these things that had happened hadn't had happened. He's very concerned. He's very upset. He wants Allison basically to try to take him away and be the solving of this equation that he's so upset about. And he's placing it all on her. And, which is, good and bad, because in the end you have to try to rely on yourself. But, he's very protective and trying to block her off, and also they're trying to leave. Allison looks at his hand and sees, hey, your hand is infected, and says, look, your hand is infected again, which it was because now he's actively killing people. And because she still doesn't understand to full extent what's going on. He did tell her that he killed a homeless man, but she didn't, I don't know if she thought it was theoretic or not, but she didn't do anything about that. She doesn't know about the recent killings. She will not leave Cory's side. He ends up jumping off of the side of the building, and she, of course she's all upset and everything, but it's not too far of a jump, and, he was doing it to, just sort of live life a little bit. And it was a bit of, a Michael type of thing. You do something kind of scary, and then, where did they go? What's going to happen? And then, he was somewhat okay. Like, I think he, sprained his foot a little bit. The radio announcer that's inside the building hears what's going on. He comes out. He's like, look, it's too loud out here. This is crazy. Tells them to leave. He makes fun of them a little bit because he recognizes Allison from the history of Michael. He recognizes Cory from the history of the little boy that had been killed. And nobody knows still that Cory's involved in all of these different murders. He then says, I can say basically whatever I want. People listen to me all over the radio, and how he influences people everywhere because he is on the radio. Allison, who's very upset, realizes, you know what? We have to get out of this town. This just isn't right. She agrees to leave with Cory, and Laurie is watching all of this in her car from a distance, which ties back to Halloween 2018 when she was watching the transit buses from one correctional facility to the other when Michael escaped. So we then go to Cory's house, and his mom is yelling and screaming at him, and she says that she's going to kick him out, and she hits him, and then she grabs him and she kisses him. And Cory's just freaked out, upset. What they're trying to do is say at this point that this young man has been dealing with sexual abuse, and that he's been taken advantage of by his mother, throughout his life. And that could be a catalyst as to maybe what Michael had seen. Maybe that's the reason why Michael turned out the way that he did also. Maybe that is the common string through all of this. I had said years before, too, that I felt that there was a string of something like that could have been in his background, too. If they didn't want to go into the whole, mystical background, unless it was, some sort of possible developmental issue, I felt that it would make sense if it was a very traumatic or multiple traumatic events in a child's life that could lead them to something that, could be something like this. There's been a lot of studies saying that the more traumatic events a child has, and also depending on, traumatic environments, sustained events can lead to different brain developments, even different brain developments in adults. But in children, it's a lot more traumatic, because then as their brain is actually growing and developing, it can be a lot more catastrophic. So, mother's kissing her son, not a very good thing. The mechanic, who is the boyfriend, is in the other room, doesn't know that part, but he tells Cory, he goes, hey, look, I hope you find love. I hope it works out for you, because he's, tired of Cory's mom probably henpecking him all the time. But he's also telling him, hey, good luck. I hope it works out for you. I got you a motorcycle. You have a good girl, and don't be depressed and downtrodden and beaten down like I am. Just get out there and live and love, do your life. Now, nobody knows Cory's killing all these people. So, at this point, Cory is up in the bathroom again, another Carrie moment, and he is unraveling, and he's trying to hold it together. And he has, other than, the boyfriend figure, the mother's boyfriend, the mechanic, who's sort of like the pseudo father role, he has no secure background, anyone to confide in or to go to. So now it's Halloween. And we see Cory sleeping on the floor in the abandoned house that the little boy had been knocked over the balcony, and he's sleeping where the boy fell and landed. Laurie is sitting on a chair behind him, and the tapping of the chair makes him wake up. She throws a paper airplane. Okay, now that is very significant, okay? Because number one, when Jeremy, the little boy, threw that paper airplane, he did it out of defiance. He did it because the only people in the house were the little boy, Cory, mom, and dad. Laurie was not in the house. She would have not known to walk into an abandoned house and gotten paper and made a paper airplane and thrown it at Cory. That paper airplane is a tie to the fact that this is either a dream or a hallucination. She's not there. So she is saying basically that, I'm trying to see this. Initially, she felt that he was a good guy, and she did not know that there was evil in him, because she wouldn't have introduced that to her granddaughter. And she says there's evil that's outside and there's evil that's within. And then she goes into this whole, well, if you have, there's the evil that's in you, you try to do the right thing, but then there's the evil that is the evil that can attack the clan. I thought that was a little bit significant too, also relating back to the book with the druids and everything and the clan, and he's the, that deformed man that went and killed the princess, and he killed the prince, and, he was attacking the group, he was attacking the clan, and then they went and basically ripped him apart. She says, stay away from Allison, because she knows that he's trying to isolate her and take her away. Then Cory says to Laurie, you came to me, you invited me. So, Halloween 78. Laurie's father is a real estate agent. They're trying to sell the Myers house because the daughter was killed by the son years prior. She ends up taking the key and leaving it at the property, and that's when Michael sees her and becomes infatuated. And she doesn't know. But when she's walking down the sidewalk, she's singing a song about love that she doesn't even know that he's listening to it, and just falls in love with her. Because he thinks she is basically liking him and leading him on. So, when he says, you came to me, Laurie went to the house and she was singing, but it wasn't intentional, right? And then he says, you invited me, which, I mean, she didn't invite Michael to do anything, but she did invite Cory to head to the first aid place and have Allison sew up his hand. He then sits down on the stairs of the spiral staircase. And obviously, the transition is you can keep going up, you can go down. There's transitions at different levels. He's sitting behind the railings, and the spoke of the railings looks like a prison on him. And he is basically acting like he is a prisoner to his feelings to Allison. And same with Michael. And both of these guys are now giving in to their feelings for these women. Michael gave in to his obsessive feelings completely. Cory was holding back a bit, and now he's teetering on he's going to be completely going after Allison and basically killing everybody. He tells Laurie, if I can't have her, then no one can have her. And that was the same thing in Michael's mind towards, the end part of the movie. Control is basically a big symptom part of borderline personality disorder and paranoia. So, could it have been? And I'm pretty sure that it had to have been because of the mom, kissing her son, kissing Cory, and everything. Dealing with that type of situation, and then it may have a little bit of a genetic possibility in there, and trauma, obviously, by they're showing the band students constantly beating them up and people just treating them badly. All those things together are mounting. So Cory then says to Laurie, let me basically be with her. And he goes, just let her go. And have her come to me, not you. And then he says, because he wants to isolate her and take her away, and he's completely obsessed with her. He wants to cut all of her security and loving people out of her life. And he says, you wish you were killed by Michael, but all of this is just a delusion. And the next thing you know, there's a shot of the open window with the wind blowing and everything. And that's the window that Cory and Allison had opened up to walk in when they had played the piano a day or so earlier. And that is to sort of make people think, oh, did Laurie go out the window? Where in fact she actually wasn't there at all. Cory then calls Allison, hey, we got to get the heck out of here. There's all kinds of crazy stuff going on. He doesn't know if he saw Laurie or not. He's thinking that he did. And he is getting very paranoid. And he's ranting and raving. And he's ranting and raving about Laurie. And he's having a psychotic break. And he's saying, for someone that's already in the deep end, and he is still having these breakdowns. Okay? Because he's freaking out so much, this should be a giant red light to Allison. There's something wrong here. We should be possibly distancing back from this guy a little bit, or seeing if someone else can get involved to help him, calm down a bit. But she doesn't. And she says basically that she's not working. And no, she says that she can't. She says, I'm at work, and the doctor and the head nurse aren't showing up. Because remember, they were killed. Because Cory and Michael killed them. And she's unbelievably busy. And Cory is trying to isolate her, and have them leave. Cory then goes to the sewer. He and Michael get into a big fight, and he steals Michael's mask. Cory then goes and he keys and scrapes up the band kid's vehicle, and chase starts. Allison ends up packing to leave with Cory. Laurie is unbelievably upset and concerned. She wants Allison to stay, and Allison blames basically everything on Laurie. So she says, a lot of my friends are dead. My parents are dead. And it's all because of you and Michael going back and forth. This whole big mess. And it's all your fault, to her grandmother, who's basically, been this mother figure and taking care of her this whole time. The boyfriend of Cory's mom, who is the mechanic shop owner, Ronald, is watching Jean-Claude Van Damme's Hard Target movie. I couldn't figure out what the tie was between that movie and the Halloween movies. So John Carpenter, Stephen King, anything. I couldn't figure it out. The band kids are in the mechanic yard. And then we go back to Christine, where, it's in a Christine-esque type of background, and we're seeing a lot of shots straight from Christine itself. So the first thing that we're going to see is, instead of the motorcycle or the beat up motorcycle, like how Christine was a little later on, was a little beat up, but Cory has now gotten a giant tow truck, which tow truck also goes back to some previous Halloween movies where Michael would steal a vehicle, and it would be a tow truck, I believe, in Halloween 4. Cory kills one of the band kids and leaves them in the car. He then kills another girl when a fence fell on her and he runs her over. He's doing this with the Michael mask on. The running the girl over with the whole fence and everything, that's also very Christine-esque for how some of these high school students had passed away. Ron hears what's going on because these kids are all yelling and screaming and saying, hey, oh my gosh, we need help. There's something crazy going on out here. He goes out with a gun, and he's trying to help what the heck is going on, and one of the band kids shoots Ron by mistake, and one of the girls gets basically hit, and she passes away. Someone else, the way that they die is very, very slow and gruesome. One of the girls gets crushed. And remember, this is all Cory with the mask on. This is not Michael. Um, Besides this series of Halloween movies, Halloween 2018 through 2022, and besides the Rob Zombie Halloween movies, I don't remember the specificness in the gore as detailed as this. So the movies from the 70s to late 1990s, I don't remember being as graphic or slow detailed as Rob Zombie's and the Blumhouse movies are. I do remember, Michael being sort of like, he can kill people with like one hit. He can, some of the things that are a little crazier that he would do, he would, grab and put his thumbs in people's eyes. That was a little bit of a longer kill. He would prop people up in different positions and things like that. And then, the after effect of seeing people propped up in these positions and maybe have ghost blankets on them, or, it would show a long drawn out murder, but they would not actually do the long drawn out murder until more recently. So the Rob Zombie movies and the Blumhouse Gordon Green movies are a lot more graphic than the previous are. So, now we're seeing here Cory goes to his house and he has the Michael mask on. He kills his mom with a knife. So the first order of business as Michael is he's killing all the people that have harassed and tortured him and treated him badly, including people that have raised him, blood relatives. Which makes you wonder, was his sister Judith possibly taking advantage of Michael as a little boy? And then he, maybe when she went with the boyfriend, he felt some sort of a obsessive compulsive urge, to kill her. But who knows? But they did introduce that string of theory into it. On the radio, there is a lot of talk. It says, "Don't feed into the hate, perpetuate it. If you gaze into the abyss can look back." But at the same time, the DJ was insulting Cory, the DJ was insulting Allison, and basically feeding a lot of negativity into the airwaves. So Cory heads over to the radio station and he kills the receptionist there, allegedly. We don't actually get to see it. Then he gets the radio host, and I'll let this one slide. He cuts out the radio host's tongue because he talks too much. And the music then on the station where people are listening to it is distorted and it's all messed up because Cory's in there and causing havoc. Allison is packed up and she's waiting for Cory. She has no clue any of this is going on. And this is happening in a very quick time period. Laurie is wearing more 1978 clothing at this point. And she has a shot to try to calm her nerves. And she sees the photos of her high school friends. And she thinks back to what happened with that, and she wants to protect her granddaughter because she knows what's happening. So at this point, we're in Laurie's house. And she makes a call up in her room upstairs to 911 and says, someone has committed a suicide. Please come and help. She then has a pumpkin in her room. And she shoots a gun. Now, who comes flying around the corner to see what happened is Cory with Michael's mask on. Because remember, he wants to isolate Allison, and Laurie is against Cory. He's trying to cut all of his ties to all these people. Cory thinks that she's dead because he hears the gunshot, he hears this splat, which is actually Laurie shooting this pumpkin, and he comes around the corner and she shoots him. So, Laurie is now talking to Cory, who's all over the place. He's laying on the ground, he's gasping because he's been shot. And she says, look, I know the truth on what's going on, and the gun, the chambers, it's all empty at this point. And Cory says, look, I don't care, because if I can't have her, no one can. Now, the funny thing is that he hears Allison coming in, okay? Which is very interesting, because he learned when the parents came in with that little boy that had died, and he opened up the door and the boy flew because he was hit by the door over the railing. The parents saw the little boy fall and get killed on the ground. Well, he heard Allison coming in. He's holding the butcher knife. Laurie's standing over him with the gun. And he tells her as Allison's walking through the door, if I can't have her, no one will. Of course, Allison can't hear that. But he knows the timing and can hear when people are going to come in. And he cuts his throat. He dies. And of course, Allison's thinking, oh my gosh, what the heck is going on here? Laurie's going, she's trying to grab the knife off of him, and because she wants him to stay, basically stay alive so he can be locked up and tell Allison, this is a freaking giant mess. He's a nutbag. He's been killing all these people. But when Allison actually views what happened, she's seeing Laurie with this knife and the gun and is going, oh my gosh, you killed Cory. And it turns into a situation where Laurie's going, that didn't happen. That's not what's going on. And next page. She runs over to Cory. And we're going to see another transition from Allison looking down at Cory. She's unbelievably concerned. She's unbelievably upset. And she's, hysterical. Cory is looking up at Allison and he's passing away, or he's gone. And that is the final transition between those two, which parallels to when he was laying down and dancing on the ground at the bar, and he was looking up at her, and then she was looking down at him, and that's when that spark went through between the two of them. So, Allison's upset. She heads out. Laurie is checking the gun for bullets. She hears a noise. She locks the door. Next thing you know, door opens. Michael's in there. So Michael was hanging out in the house the whole time. Michael ends up basically trying to get the knife. And Cory gasps back to life and is struggling with Michael to get the knife back. And, this could be a little bit back to when they were back in the sewer for the second time, and they were struggling back and forth over the mask. And Michael's just like, this guy, what am I going to do with this guy? So he's trying to get the knife. He can't get the knife. Cory's flailing around on the ground. He gets the mask. He does a mercy kill on Cory, or, I was going to say just try to get him out of the way, but it's mostly a mercy kill on Cory. And he literally shows him affection to almost as if he was like some sort of a protege or a student, and passes that to Cory. Laurie ends up walking exactly like Michael, straight up and down in her kitchen, which I think is a little bit of a throwback to Halloween 2018, because through that movie, towards the end of the movie, they flipped and switched roles, where Laurie was acting like Michael and she was coming after Michael and doing some Michael mannerisms, and Michael was in Laurie's position where he was trying to figure out where she was, what was going on, and how to stop her, because she was trying to knock him out from killing everybody. He goes to the kitchen. He opens up the door with with his hand, which would be his left hand, in 78 when, 18, when he broke through the cabin door and put his hand on the top of the shotgun, and it blasted away his 3 fingers of his left hand. So that is the hand that he opens up the kitchen door with. And then the two, and because she was hiding in the slats in the kitchen, like she was hiding in the closet in 78. So the two go back and forth in a scuffle, and Laurie basically gets her hand in his hands, and he's trying to put it down the garbage disposal, which is a callback to H2O, which was a really good movie. I really liked H2O. And she ends up, getting free. And then the sewing needle comes back, the giant sewing needle from 78. And she takes that giant crochet needle, and they're fighting back and forth over the needle, and he takes it and he jams it near her ear. And man, I can't imagine. I winced at that one. I was like, I can't imagine how bad in real life that would have hurt, because she ended up taking that needle, jabbing it into like the side of his neck. And he ended up taking it and putting it near her ear area. Laurie then grabs the knife. She puts it down through his hand into the wooden table. And you can tell at this point, you could say it could be a tie to 2018 again, where the characters are switching roles. But in addition to that, we're using Michael's favorite weapon and weaponizing it and using it against him. So she now has the advantage. He's locked to the table, and he's having a difficult time pulling the knife and freeing himself from the table, because the knife is going through his hand into this table. Ironically, in 1978, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, Laurie used the knife on Michael in that movie also, and she used it against him in the book too. But when she was done, she threw it down. This time, instead of throwing it down, she makes it stick, literally. Michael is basically incapacitated, but at the same time, he's not. And we all know, Michael could get out of a situation like that. But he has been hidden away for 4 years. They're showing that basically whatever this is that's been keeping him, alive and feeding him is slowly starting to fade away. And he's just caught at this point. So, while he is struggling on the table, that's when the flashbacks start of previous Halloween. And he has Laurie with his hand, and he's choking her. And they're showing all the history of Halloween. And Allison comes in and saves her grandmother. And at this point, Laurie and Michael have a bit of a moment with each other, where they were a huge part of each other's lives and had bonded over a lot. So with Michael, he bonded over love, infatuation, obsessive, obsessive everything. Obsessive love, obsessive in killing, just constantly going after her, thinking about nothing else. And then, of course, aggression and, murders. Laurie, he was always on her mind in a victim way, a feared way. There is a bond of captor and captive She then was becoming more aggressive and was trying to lash out against him, trying to prepare people for how to deal with him. And there's a lot of emotions flying back and forth through all of this. And, and things like that, to a certain degree, can happen in real life too. So, while this is happening, Allison, you can see, is disturbed and taken aback and upset. And you can blatantly see that because she hasn't experienced something like that. At this point, I thought it was very interesting how Laurie looked with the blood and everything on her, and the way that she was dressed, and specifically how the blood splatters were on her. In Dead by Daylight, they made a character that's a true Dead by Daylight 100% created and owned character called the artist. And if you lined up Laurie from that shot to what the artiste looks like, you will see a lot of comparisons there. And I thought that was also very, very interesting to see. So, while this is all going on, Frank, the police officer from 1978, that was involved in trying to get Michael and everything. And he, liked Laurie back then. He still likes Laurie now. And they revealed in Halloween Kills in 2021 that he helped the cover-up of an accidental police officer shooting when Michael was in his house, and he was basically strangling a police officer. Frank took a shot. He didn't hit Michael. He hit the police officer, and that officer died. They said that Michael was the one that killed the police officer and not Frank. And they said that it was an accidental shooting. Instead of an accidental shooting. So they would basically, I'm trying to see how I wrote this out here. My handwriting's pretty terrible. Okay. So Frank is back in the picture, and Michael at this point is basically dead. Okay. So they all go, Laurie, Allison, Frank, people in the town and everything, and they take Michael and they strap him down to the top of Laurie's car and drive him from the neighborhood over to the auto wrecking yard. And back in the day, if somebody was a hunter and they ended up getting a very impressive trophy animal, they would go and tie them on the hood, or they would tie them on the roof of the car and kind of show them off and everything. So basically that's what they did with Michael. and there was a procession of cars, and it's sort of for let everybody see, okay, hey, we have Michael, he's dead, and basically let people have that ingrained, and then they can start to heal. The little boy who was the little boy that was getting babysat back in 2018 was there, and the lady who was stabbed in the neck with the light bulb from 2021, and earlier in the movie with her sister at the supermarket was also there. The motorcycle in the auto wrecking yard is just laying on its side, flat. No life, no motion, no anything, because that's Cory's story. And the motorcycle is also witnessing, I believe, as a representative as Cory of Michael and his procession. And of the fact that initially Cory didn't want to get involved in all of this, and then he was slowly won over to, this other side. Ironically, Michael is being paraded on one of the cars that Cory had fixed. So that's another little bit of a get back there for Cory. There is a light that is shining in the auto yard, and the light is reminiscent of The Thing, the movie. Ron, and if you remember, Ron and all those kids were all killed in that auto wrecking yard, and we don't happen to see any of them. Michael was then taken off the car, and he is basically lifted up to the automobile grinding and processing machine, and Laurie basically helps load him into this grinder, and he is basically ground up. So, Cory was over time consumed by the evil, but he had choices, but he kept transcending in these different directions. Allison, seeing that Laurie and Mike had that moment with each other, but even though she was taken aback and you could see, that there was something going on there, she was not consumed, and she did not transcend or choose evil because of it, okay? Because she probably could have grabbed a knife and just knocked them both off and let this continue on with herself. Allison eventually leaves Haddonfield to pave her own way, but she does it with the love of her grandmother and as, a young, strong, independent young woman. Don't Fear the Reaper is playing in the background while this is all happening from 78. Everybody is basically healing at this point in the movie. Laurie and Frank are hanging out together and having a good time. And they show the house in clips. And the house has a warm glow. And in the end, it shows in the living room a coffee table with a book and Michael's mask laying on it. Compared to 78, where they showed, the front of the house and, inside the house with the steps and, where Michael had been landed when he, had fallen out the window and Loomis shot him. And it was silverish, dark, dark green, dark, dark blue, and bright, bright, light white blues from the moon because it was nighttime. And this is the contradiction of that in the warm glow, the rosy glow in the house now. So, very interesting, but in the end, Laurie still had Michael's mask on her coffee table as a remembrance of him. Halloween ends, shows on blue font from Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, and Halloween fades away and ends, stays on the screen. So, the movie had a lot of mixed reactions. I liked it. It took me a few watches to really understand and get the ties of things that had happened in the movie. I thought it was very good. It was a very different type of horror movie. I liked the fact that it involved some romantic ties and things like that. It was very entertaining. It had a lot of twists and turns, and I liked the, depth into the characters and the history behind them and how they were struggling and trying to figure out how to move forward, and how they were making these choices and going into all these different avenues for options. In this movie, there was a big emphasis on bright colors. There were a lot of subliminal and subconscious workings going on and being introduced in the movie. And, when we went into all of that, the chocolate milk, the knife is here, the knife is there, triangles, infinity symbols, the mask, carvings of the mask, the auto wrecker tow truck, the motorcycle, the bicycle, things like that. There were a lot of things, the scarecrow mask, a lot of things going on in this movie. Tons of head nods to previous works and creators. It was very, very cool. The survivors all had a lot of very strong emotion, and this was a very drama-driven movie. It was not your standard, full action horror, stabbing movie. There was a lot of drama and, emotion behind it. Some things that I really kind of picked up on, and of course, there was an emphasis on the radio. The radio helped putting out, some hurt. Well, the radio helped putting out nastiness about Laurie and Allison and Cory off and on, but also helped shape and feed into what the town thought and reacted to or acted to. Something that I thought was interesting in the movie, I don't know if I was the only person to think this, but Judith basically watched Michael kill her back in 1978. And adult Michael killed, I said that wrong. Judith was supposed to watch Michael, and he killed her as a child. When Michael escaped in his early 20s, he killed the babysitters, right? So what you're seeing there is a switch. The babysitter was killed by the little boy, and now the little boy is a grown-up, and he kills the babysitters as an adult, right? Now, if you go over, you're going to see Michael kills Laurie's daughter, Karen, because Laurie was supposed to be looking over and preparing Karen, but she couldn't protect her. Cory was babysitter and inadvertently killed that little boy, Jeremy. So I think that's another tie of what had happened in this movie, and we'll just have to see. We'll just have to see if there's anything behind any of that. But I thought that was very interesting how, it's definitely a flip of roles of what's going on with all of that. Michael killing the babysitters because, they're supposed to be watching the kids. Some of them actually aren't watching the kids. They're out there screwing around like his sister was. So he kills them. Michael kills Karen because Laurie was supposed to be looking out for her and giving her the heads up on what's going on. And, obviously, too, he just wants to get under Laurie's skin a little bit. But very interesting. And then we had a natural bond there with Cory because he inadvertently killed that little boy, but it was an accident. But yeah, very interesting, very good movie there. And if anybody wants to watch the most recent Halloween movie, that's Halloween Ends. It was officially in theaters on October 14th, 2022, and of course now it is out on Blu-ray, DVD, and you can also purchase it online, so you can watch it while streaming. So I hope you guys had a great time, and there were a lot of very interesting scenarios and things to look into. This movie, I think you really have to watch quite a few times to see all of the specific details in it, and I bet you there's probably a ton of details that we missed and I just may have not picked up on. But I hope you guys had a great time and check it out. We'll see you next time. Bye.